Welcome. If I haven't met you, a couple of you I don't think I've met. So I'm Dave from Therapy Gardens, and this is Peggy. Peggy works with me. Yeah, so we're here. Yeah. So Therapy Gardens is here roughly once a month, and we do a bunch of different topics. We do. Is this okay here? Yeah. Okay. All right. And we go by a couple different names. So we go by Therapy Gardens, which is we do a lot of wellness activities and nutrition and cooking and healthy living and gardening and stuff like we're doing today, the low sugar cooking and things like that. And then the Senior U was kind of an outgrowth of that, and we do a lot of current events and some technology instruction and some we do historical lectures and talks and things like that. But today we're here to talk a little bit about low sugar desserts and diabetes and all that stuff. And this is a little bit similar. We do just a regular diabetic cooking one. So some of the slides in the beginning are a little bit similar because it's really all the same. When you think about it, I just want to find my little clicker, my fancy clicker. Let's see if it works. Yeah, all right. So one of the things that before we kind of get going is I like to just give a little disclaimer so that, people understand I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, none of those things. I do my research, and the research that I do is informed by Harvard Health Publishing and the Mayo Clinic primarily. I'm pretty careful with what I use for sources. And one of the things that I'm really attuned to, and what I'm trying to do with a lot of these presentations at the senior centers, is the information changes so much, so fast, that people can't keep up. So I've kind of taken it upon myself to try to keep up on a lot of these things and be as current with research as I possibly can. That said, to be current and to also be responsible, you have to kind of be careful. You can't just grab the latest research that comes around. You have to really, think about it and explain it in a way that people understand. So we're going to talk today just briefly about the basics, and I know you probably have sat through this a little bit before. If you were here last, if we did the low sugar cooking, were you here for that one? You might not have been.
No, I didn't.
Okay, great. So this should be new to everybody, so that's great. So the thing is, diabetes, it's and you might have heard the term pre-diabetes. And, some of the doctors have said to me in the past, we're not supposed to say pre-diabetes. We're supposed to say you're either, your sugar is high or whatever. I don't, I want to know. So whatever you label it is fine. You can, call it, Mickey Mouse for all I care, just as long as you're alerting me to the fact that my blood sugar is high, and what to do about it. But when it's untreated, and it's also a lot of times you've heard it called the silent killer, because you don't even know you have diabetes, or you don't even know you have high blood sugar, and there can be some symptoms that can mask themselves as other symptoms, as other chronic illnesses, things like that. But the problem is it doesn't go away. Here, look at what causes it. It's a mixture of we talk about hereditary and lifestyle. Even type 1 is hereditary. We know that. Type 2 is, some of it's brought on by lifestyle, but some of it can be hereditary too. And I'm probably a decent example of that. Not that my lifestyle is great with eating, but hereditarily, I remember, when I was first playing around, flirting with diabetes, you could say, my doctor was really worried about it. And I remember my mother saying, your grandfather ran high his whole life. And by today's standards, he probably would have diabetes because the standards have changed a little bit. They've lowered the threshold. But some of the things that contribute to type 2 diabetes are being overweight, having an unhealthy diet, and inactivity. These are things that are good for you no matter what, but you need to do these things to prevent diabetes, especially if you're prone to it. So a lot of these things can be done through diet. The inactivity piece, one of the things that's great about blood sugar is if you just get a little bit, 20 minutes of exercise after you eat, a lot of the spike in your blood sugar will go away. So walking or moving around a little bit can be really helpful for some folks. The best thing that you can do is to reduce your intake of sugar and carbohydrates. And remember, sugar is part of the total carbohydrates. So you want to keep that in mind when you're looking at labels and things like that, right? So, the harmful effects of sugar, and this, it's addictive. Whether we want to admit it or not, sugar is addictive. I myself I'm not a huge sweet eater, but sometimes the mood will strike me and I'll be sitting on the couch and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, I need something sweet. Well, I mean, that can be an addiction after a while, feeding that kind of, that sweet tooth, But sugar overloads the liver, and that's the real problem with sugar, is that it particularly refined sugar, where the white stuff. Remember, you don't eat anything white because it just dumps right into your liver. That's really what happens, and that's what causes the spike in blood sugar. So you want to avoid all that, and particularly sugary drinks are really something that you should absolutely eliminate from your diet. And you have to be careful. We're going to talk a little bit about hidden sugars too, because you might be drinking some things that you think are good for you, like iced tea. Oh, I'm drinking iced tea. Well, if you look at the label, you see there's a lot of added sugar in those things, So what's the recommended daily allowance for sugar? Does anyone know? What does the government say you should have for sugar? Does anyone know what sodium is?
Yes.
What's sodium? Well, it's 1,200. Well, you could say 1,200 milligrams a day of sodium. It's really, you could actually go 23, depending on, your age and things like that. It's a trick question. There is no recommended daily allowance of sugar because it's not an essential nutrient. This is what a lot of people forget about sugar, right? And this is how trained we have been. That I actually said, how much sugar do you think the government says you should get? I actually said that. And because we're so used to seeing sugar all over the place, it's ubiquitous, right? So now you look at it and you say, you're not supposed to have any, right? But here it is. So the Heart Association recommends no more than, so they're not saying you should have 6 teaspoons. They're saying no more than 6 teaspoons a day for women, which that seems like a lot to me, But then it goes to 9 teaspoons for men. But how many teaspoons a day do you think we actually consume? So if they're saying 6, a lot more than that, yeah. You ready for this? The average adult consumes 17 teaspoons of added sugar. Look at that, the word added in there. That's just not like, tomatoes you eat tomato sauce and there's naturally some sugar in it. They're adding extra sugar, you know what I mean? But look at this one. The average man has 22 teaspoons of added sugar a day.
There's probably that many in a donut.
There's probably that many in a donut. There's probably, I'll tell you the other thing. I don't really go to Dunkin' Donuts that much, like in the line. But sometimes when I go in the line, you hear people like, oh, light and sweet, and you watch them with the sugar, and it's like 8 sugars in this coffee, and you're like, oh my god.
Talk to Mary about all that stuff she puts out there.
Does Mary do? Yeah, I know, right? Oh yeah, I know. Oh, I was just tempted just now. There's donuts out there by the snack tables at at work or here at centers and things like that. You have to be really careful of that. Very interesting. You might have seen in the news a few months ago. There's a pitcher from Japan who was just signed to the most lucrative sports contract in history, not just baseball. Sports contract in history. $700 million they paid for this player, right? Yeah. So, and he's one of these, supposed to be the next Babe Ruth. He can pitch and he can bat, the whole thing. So I was interested and I started reading about, what they do after they sign players like this. And all these sports teams have nutritionists now. And one of the nutritionists' job is to eliminate things like that. The donuts at the, coffee and donuts in the morning, and they replace it with nuts and beef jerky and high protein sources of snacks that are, low in sugar and carbohydrates. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So what do you have to look for? At the added sugar flags, right? So obviously, some of them are labeled sugar, brown sugar, It's not, is it as bad as refined sugar? No, it's not as bad, but it's still sugar, right? It's, it is what it is. Corn sweetener, corn syrup, right? You know all these things. We know these things. But then you start getting down into some other ones. We all know about high fructose corn syrup. Honey and molasses, you see those substituted a lot. It's still sugar, but it's a natural sugar. So the difference there is there's actually, think of it like it's not slamming into your liver immediately like the refined sugar is. It takes a while to get there because there's some fiber and some nutrients. It has to work its way through your system, so it's a slower drip. It's better than having refined sugar, much better. And there's also some antioxidants, and so there's nutrients there. Same with molasses. And then the last one, this always gets me. These are anything that ends in ose, O-S-E. I call them the oses. It's sugar, okay? It's just sugar under a different name. So, we know lactose, milk has sugar, lactose, right? Glucose, sucrose, dextrose, and it seems to me like whenever we seem to catch on to one, they add another one. They throw something else in there that we don't, we all knew about high fructose corn syrup. Then they started calling it other things, So you have to just, read the labels and pay attention. All right, so this slide here, naturally occurring sugars. Nothing has prompted more debate in some of the larger sessions that I've had of this about whether people that are facing down diabetes or pre-diabetes should eat fruit or not, right? So there's conflicting things out there. You have people have said to me, my doctor said I can't have any fruit. My doctor has said I can have this kind of fruit. My doctor has said I should have fruit and ignore all the other stuff because the benefits of the fruit outweigh the negatives of the sugar that's in the fruit, right? And people don't know what to do. So the first thing is everyone's different. You have to start from that place that maybe there are some people that you shouldn't have any fruit at all. Though it might be an extreme case. That's something you want to talk to your doctor about, right? But
the problem is doctors are not nutritionists either.
They're not. Thank you for saying that. The problem is doctors are not nutritionists either, and that is absolutely true. In fact, I had a doctor approach me after she had been in the audience and didn't tell me she was a doctor, which luckily I didn't say anything crazy. But she came up to me afterwards and she said, she said doctors are basically trained to just say don't have any sugar and move on. They don't get into the nuance of can you have fruit and can you have that. She said, and that's where a lot of the conversation needs to be had is at the nutritionist level. And so if you ever have a chance to see a nutritionist, do it. I did it. They offered it to me when my blood sugar was high. My mom was alive then, you'll appreciate this. And I went home and I said, they're trying to send me to a nutritionist. I don't want it. And she goes, what are you, stupid? She said, of course you're going to go to a nutritionist. It's free help, go. And I went and it was excellent. I learned a lot of this presentation came from that consultation. So you want to, keep in mind, eat real food. That's the bottom line, right? Now, just normally I don't have to do this, but I have a nephew who's 25, so I've learned sometimes I have to define what real food is to people, right? I don't think I do to you guys, but real food is not macaroni and cheese, chicken nuggets, right? That's not real food, okay? Real food is the wholer your food is. There's a reason that I actually chose these pictures. The wholer your food is, the better it is for you, right? That's the less someone has touched it, the less a machine has touched it, right? So iceberg lettuce is better for you than romaine lettuce is better for you than bagged lettuce. This is along the lines of contamination is what we're really talking about. Because, romaine might have some more nutrients than iceberg, but when you see in the news, you see listeria outbreaks, it's always romaine because it's a leafy lettuce that they have to handle and pick, whereas iceberg, they just pick up and throw it in a bin. So the wholer your food, the better it is for you. Natural sugars, I think natural sugars are okay. If you have been told otherwise, you should talk to your doctor and talk to a nutritionist, is what I would suggest. All right, you want to watch your carbohydrates. We know this, we talked about it. All right, so your ideal numbers, right? So you want to be at 140 grams of carbs per day. Now, this is where it gets interesting, right? That's 45 to 60 per meal and 15 to 20 per snack. And if your blood sugar is high, you should be on the lower end of those, right? But here's the thing. You can't bank them. So you either use it or you lose it, right? So in other words, you can't say, well, I'm going to skip breakfast and lunch and have 60 grams of carbs at dinner because I didn't have any for breakfast at lunch. You can't do that. There's no banking. So it's you either eat your carbs at that, when you plan to, or that's it. They're gone. And then again, like I said, walking for 20 minutes, half an hour after this makes it all go away, So there's the sodium. You want about 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams. 1 teaspoon is 2,300 milligrams. And I always put the fiber in there because we probably don't get enough fiber, most people, in our diets. And fiber is really important for blood sugar regulation too. Oatmeal. You want to eat some oatmeal. There's no doubt about it that works. Lastly,
They just told us oatmeal is bad for us.
oh, who told us that? Oh,
About 2 or 3 days.
oh no, I'm already behind the 8 ball. Oatmeal.
It said there's something that's in oatmeal or sprayed on oatmeal that we're not supposed to have.
All right.
I've eaten
Oh
oatmeal
no.
all my life.
Yeah, right. Me too. Yeah. Oh boy. All right. Well, we'll have to research oatmeal for a little further. It's probably going to come down to buy organic oatmeal or something.
coffee.
Like coffee or tea. Buy organic tea whenever you can. Because
Coffee used to cause cancer. Now,
Oh, yeah.
now it's a nutrient.
so, like eggs. Eggs is another one. Eggs were bad for you, then they were good for you, then they were bad for you again. Then you only ate the whites. Then you were stupid if you only ate the whites. You're supposed to eat the yolks.
Oh, they tell us not to eat rice too.
I've read about rice. I have read about arsenic in rice. I have read about that. Yeah.
Brown rice has more fiber.
It does.
But it has more arsenic.
Yeah. So there's, look, everything in moderation, right? Wash your food, buy organic when you can, buy whole food when you can. It doesn't mean you have to do all these things all the time. Be aware, listen to the news, right? Like she, those are the things, but don't let it consume your every waking moment because you just be running around afraid of everything all day. So just the last kind of point I wanted to make on this. This is based on a 2,000 calorie a day diet, which I'm probably the only person in the room that actually gets a 2,000 calorie a day diet here. Most of you probably eat a lot less. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're looking at these numbers. If you eat a lot less, obviously the numbers are going to go down for you, Okay. So the OSAs, the O's, all that stuff. So we talked about sugar alternatives. Here are some that I call them a mixed bag, okay? They have strengths, they have weaknesses. We'll talk about some of them, in a little more detail. But just as kind of an overview, you have stevia. So the first thing is stevia is natural. It's all natural. It's a plant. I grew it this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's 100 times sweeter than sugar. Yeah. A lot of people don't care for it, And again, that's why I say it's a mixed bag. If it's to your taste, it's probably the greatest thing ever invented for you. If you try stevia and you're like, oh, this is it. It substitutes sugar for me. That's a win all the way around, right? But for a lot of people, the flavor is a lot different. I actually use, if I'm going to make something, I use date paste. I like dates. You can use a 1-to-1, although some recipes say you should use a little less because there's a little liquid content in the date as opposed to sugar. So you can use it as a 1-to-1 substitute for sugar. I do that I don't bake a lot anyway, but if I did, I would use that just because it does make things a little more moist.
How do you make a paste?
So you just take your dates and just cut the stem out and just mash it up. That's it. That's Fig Newtons is dates mashed up with sugar and in cookie dough. That's it. I mean, that's all it is, really. Or figs rather, not dates, figs. I just said, yeah. You know what I mean? But it's the same exact thing. Fruit purees, again, there's still some sugar, but you're getting some antioxidants, you're getting some nutrients. We talked about maple syrup, we talked about molasses. Monk fruit sweetener, that's another one. Very interesting. It's out there. If you haven't heard of it, it's relatively new. And it's actually a fruit that is very sweet, but it has sugar in it, but it doesn't get its sweetness from the sugar. So they actually take the sugar out. And then they sell it as monk fruit and as a monk fruit sweetener. You have to be careful with it because lately they've been mixing it with ethereal, which is that sugar-free chemical. No, we're talking about monk fruit sweetener.
Oh, monk fruit.
Monk fruit. And I'll show you a picture of it. I have a picture of the packaging that it comes in. But that's, you see that quite a bit now. If you go in Shaw's and you look at, like, go to the, the sugar or the baking aisle, you'll see a bunch of different products around monk fruit now. And then agave. Agave is more of a, a liquid thing. All right, so the reason I show this, I don't expect anyone to remember this, and if you want it, I'll be happy to send it to you or send it to the center and they can print it for you. But you want to remember that sugar, it's not always a one-to-one substitution, right? So when you're using, if you say, well, I'm going to use stevia, right? You use 1 teaspoon of stevia to replace 1 cup of sugar, right? So that's where people go wrong when they start fiddling around with this. Now, the other thing is, if you're baking, you want to remember that sugar contributes to the baking process too. It helps things spread and rise and all that. So you do need some sugar in things. So again, you can just look at these. And then there's erythritol. This is erythritol. I don't really know how you say it, but that's the latest thing. When you go in, like, Stop and Shop or Shaw's and you see the sugar-free candy aisle and it's a mile long of all this sugar-free candy, it's that erythritol that's in it, which is linked to a lot of intestinal distress now. It can really upset your stomach. You have one piece of, a little piece of hard candy within it, you're fine. But if you eat 6, which I might have done at one point in time, you're not going to feel so good. So anyway, just, something to keep in mind there. So one of the things that I did is I was kind of playing around and I was like, all right, so if sugar causes things to spread and you need it to rise, well, why not find a recipe that you don't need the cookie to rise that much, right? So I started thinking about my grandmother's Italian cookies that she used to make for every, the ones, the little blob ones that, right? They don't need to rise, they don't need to spread. So there's something you can get away with a lot less sugar if you want. So I just as a kind of a, really an exercise in what does it look like if you were going to reduce some of the sugar and make something that you still enjoyed. And a lot of people, by the way, the Italian cookies, if you don't like them, it's probably because you don't like the anise that's in there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's probably because of the anise. A lot of people, that's got that licoricey flavor. If you don't like that, just, use vanilla instead. And then you have a kind of a milder cookie. But yeah, so that's, again,
I can't read all of that, but you have 2 cups of powdered sugar. How does that relate to granulated sugar?
So powdered, I don't know about the measurements. There's definitely a different measurement.
I don't think it says on the box either.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, if I were trying to do low sugar, I probably would I definitely wouldn't use 2 cups anyway. I probably would just sprinkle powdered sugar on it, after, because that's a glaze. You don't need that to rise or anything like that, So again, optional,
You can't really substitute powder for granulated.
No, I don't think that would work.
I just wondered if you knew.
I don't know. It's something to look up, that's for sure. All right, so let's look at some recipes and things like that. So if you wanted to make your own stevia syrup, right, this is how you would do it. You don't even have to cook it. All you do is combine hot water with crushed stevia leaves, let it sit for 24 hours, and then just strain it. And then now you have a syrup that you can use as a sweetener. And again, if you like that, the flavor of that, it works for you. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Good.
Where
All
did
right.
you buy your stevia plant?
I got it at Nezrella's. Nezrella's, guys know Nezrella's on the Avon Brockton line.
Yes.
That's where I just bought a little stevia plant. They had it right there where all the herbs are. And I put it in one of my raised beds. It went like crazy. Yeah, it really, I put it right next to the sage. It did great.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, we've talked about fruit. This is something that you see a lot of people from other cultures that do this. They'll freeze grapes and mangoes and things like that as snacks instead of going out and buying ice cream or something, which leads me to our next one. This is called nice cream. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, But how you do it is you just blend. First of all, you cut the fruit into chunks and freeze it. And the reason you cut it into chunks is so that and freeze it separately so that it doesn't all clump together. And then if you want to fit it in a blender or something like that, you can. So I'll show you the one that I made. I did it with a banana, which bananas, I didn't know this at the time, but they have probably the most carbohydrates of a lot of the fruits. However, again, back to it's natural, it's not, there's no added sugars. So all I did to make, and this is actually a picture of it, is I just sliced up some bananas, put them in the freezer, popped them out, and then I just put them in the food processor until they were smooth, and I added a little cocoa powder, and it was a little bland. It was a lot bland. So I actually added a little bit of vanilla, and it was much better. It made all the difference in the world. I just added a drop of vanilla, blended it one more time.
I'm trying to think what I put in mine. Gwyneth Paltrow has a banana ice cream recipe. And it's really good.
There's tons of them out there, and I just put them in. I put them in little, self-serve things and put them in the freezer, and I would just pull one out at night. It was, I think it was during the summer. I was like, I'll do this instead of ice cream. And I'd never made it again, but that doesn't mean it wasn't worthwhile, But again, just a different way of having something. Again, for most of us, it's probably at night. The sweet thing usually happens at night, right? I mean, that's probably a universal thing. So, keeping this in the freezer is just another little tool in the bag to keep you from eating, M&Ms or something. All right, so some beneficial fruits. That I always like to, cooking with fruit is a great way for, desserts and adding things like that. So strawberries, grapefruits, and apples and pears have low glycemic indexes and are high in fiber, right? And again, you want the fiber. You want fiber. It helps things kind of move through your body. And then raspberries, bananas, and grapes may help with blood sugar management, right? So you look at it and you say, now, bananas they're a perfect example. Bananas are high in carbohydrates, and traditionally, everyone's been told, you should stay, if you're watching your sugar, you should probably just stay away from bananas and, eat something else, eat apples or whatever. Now they're starting to realize that maybe there's some blood sugar management that comes out of it. And I guess I would liken it to the idea of cholesterol. They used to think that all cholesterol was bad. Now they realize that there's some good cholesterol and some bad. You need some cholesterol, and you know what I mean? So I think that's where this research is heading to. But these are great for desserts. I do this. I love it. It's not low calorie. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's low calorie, but it is a lot less sugar than any other thing that would be chocolatey, right? So you just take 2 cups of heavy cream and 1 packet of instant sugar-free pudding and just blend it together. Just mix it right up. Boom. It's surprisingly good. You don't notice the sugar, and I think the cream, because some of the sugar-free stuff can have that funny aftertaste, and I think the cream kind of gets rid of that. I think you taste more of the cream than you do the other stuff. But again, it's not. This is a desserts thing, so I'm not going to say that it's low calorie. It's not. But it's actually a lot less sugar than if you had, a piece of chocolate cake. These are no cook. So these are, you just make them into balls, chill them, and then just drizzle a little bit of, you could put chocolate on them, or you could use maple syrup or something if you wanted to. The downside here, you want to be, peanut butter is high calorie. Again, you want to be careful of that. But if you're looking for something that satisfies like a sweet tooth, this definitely does. You feel almost like eating a Reese's cup or peanut butter cup or whatever it is. So this one here, this sugar, this one, I've made this one too, and it's excellent. There is some sugar in it, and again, we know we need some sugar for things to rise. The big thing here is that it uses cottage cheese. And, it actually works pretty well. Get the low sodium, low fat cottage cheese, obviously, but it works pretty well. And I've talked to a lot of people who have made this, and they've been pretty, when I come back around again, people, I made that, it came out really good. Although people don't really tell me if it comes out bad, so hopefully they're not lying to me. So this, I didn't get a chance to change the picture, but someone had requested a cake, a chocolate cake at the last one. So I kind of quickly pulled this together. So I found this one and I normally use my own recipes, but this one I was looking fast, and it's called yummytoddlerfood.com. That's the name of the website. But they actually have some really great recipes on there. And this is one, and again, you can see using the cocoa powder, much less sugar. Looks like about a third of a cup less sugar than you normally would. It calls for whole wheat flour. It's just a different way of making a cake. Sorry, the picture doesn't go with it. So then some other ideas just to kind of keep you thinking. Sometimes when you're craving something sweet, you actually can get away with something savory and salty that will take that away too. So for me, I actually make my own beef jerky. It's pretty easy to make. You just find a lean cut of beef, cut the fat away, make a little marinade, and dehydrate it in the oven for 5-6 hours on low. But it's a really high protein, low calorie snack. As long as you don't load it with sodium, it's really good. Cheese is another one. A lot of fat in cheese, but cheese can satisfy a sweet tooth. But I'm also one of those people, like, I could keep a whole chocolate cake in my house and not touch it. If there's cheese in my refrigerator, it's gone. It might take the whole night. I might go and chip away at it overnight, a little here, a little there. But it's going to be gone in the morning, trust me. Nuts, pickles, olives, these are all really good ways of kind of satisfying a craving or a sweet tooth or something like that. They have their challenges too. Nuts, higher in calories, so you want to not eat too many of those. Pickles and olives, high in sodium. You want to be careful there. All right, some useful products. One of the things I've been doing is ending a lot of these presentations with kind of, where can you find more stuff? What are some things you might want to be using? So almond flour is something you might want to think about. It just, it has more fiber is really the reason that you would use it. So we might have to change this. I don't want. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to research that a little bit. It's kind of like dark chocolate. You've heard about. There's some concern about heavy metals in dark chocolate now and things like that. And it appears that it's a processing issue. It appears that it's how they make dark chocolate, because a lot of the smaller batch dark chocolate doesn't have those levels of it. So maybe it's the same with this. Who knows? So these were really good. You can get them at Amazon. I wanted to try them. They're small. I'm not going to sit here and tell, like, even that makes it look a little bigger than it is, I think. But they were surprisingly good. And again, my thing is kind of like, it's like pasta. I don't like whole wheat pasta. I'm not going to eat whole wheat pasta. So if I'm going to have pasta, I'm just going to have less regular pasta. I usually feel that way about cookies and things like that. But this one is pretty good. This one I had, I was like, all right, this works. There's the monk fruit. Okay, so that's what it looks like. So you have to look for the one that says 0 fillers, right? Natural sweetener, no additives or anything like that. Because what they're doing is in some of them, they're putting monk fruit and then little tiny writing with erythritol or whatever, however you say that chemical, in there as well. And they put the two of them together. I'm not really sure, what the motivation behind that is, but maybe it's cheaper, I don't know. Does anyone use this? True Lemon?
I think I did, yes.
This is of everything, this is probably the best product in this whole presentation. It's just dehydrated lemon, that's it. There's no sugar added, there's nothing added to it. You can get it in little packets like this. You just dump it in your water, shake it up. I've used it, I've sprinkled it on things, I've used it in sauce. Anywhere you might use lemon or lemon zest or anything like that, but I particularly use it, it's really the only water that I drink now other than like seltzer water or something.
But you can use it in cooking.
You can use it in cooking, you can do anything you want with it. And I really, they have other ones, I have an orange one, a lime one, they're not as good, and I think they have some additives too, but the lemon one is a really, really good one. I brought you some of this to check out. Have you guys seen this? Cocoa husk tea? So I'm going to pass it around so you can smell it. So this is, when they make chocolate, the husk of the cocoa, it's like, it looks like that. See it? You can even, you already smell it, I bet. You smell it? Yeah.
I wonder if I would be allergic to that.
And it's a byproduct of the chocolate. So they used to just, yeah, take it. They used to just throw it away. Doesn't it smell great? So you can buy it and you can make a tea. Doesn't that smell great? You can keep it. So you make a tea out of it. So yeah, you put it in a tea, you make a tea out of it. And it has no sugar, it has no calories. It's not like drinking liquid chocolate. It's an amber, that's what it looks like. It's an amber colored liquid, but it has that aroma. And it definitely, if you're a chocolate person, it satisfies that. You're like, okay, I feel like I had some chocolate, And I got this from, this is a local supplier that I deal with. It's called Right Old School Chocolates, and they're in Franklin, Mass. Really nice guy. But I always like to bring that to show people, because just the aroma alone, I think, can be beneficial to people just drinking it and smelling it,
Excuse me, what did you say the name of the company?
Right Old School Chocolate, WRIGHT.
Oh, okay.
And he makes a lot of nice dark chocolate bars and things like that. Yeah. All right, so, more information, places to go. The Mayo Clinic is loaded with recipes. If you go to the mayoclinic.org, this would scroll and scroll and scroll. You name it, it's in there. And I'm very comfortable with almost any recipe that have used or found in there has been pretty accurate as far as that it tastes decent. You can tell that they really pay attention to what they post up there. They don't just post, any old thing. They post up, really good stuff. I love this website. They have a free email newsletter. If you're an email person, you can just sign up for it. And you can check off all the health-related things that you're interested in, and it will essentially send you just those things. And you can say, I want it once a month, once a week, whatever it is. But I really, I found quite a bit of information there. And then I have to give a plug for our own little business, Therapy Kitchens. That's, we sell the prepared foods. I gave you all a little bookmark with our phone number on it. Yeah. And we sell the low sodium, no added sugar soups and things like that. So I like to just mention that. therapykitchens.com. And before you go, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, you might want to just go to our website. This is our Therapy Gardens newsletter. Therapy Kitchens is for the food. This is for the newsletter for workshops and where we're going to be. And all you do when you come here, if you want some recipes, obviously just click on recipes and tips, right? Or you can sign up for our newsletter. It will pop up when you go there to ask you to sign up. All right. So any questions? Anything I can help you folks with?
So how about reducing the sugar in a regular recipe and...
Yeah, so you don't want to reduce it by more than really a third. That's...
Sometimes I do a half.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you can, well, if you don't like it, but it's going to affect the rise of whatever it is that you're baking, So the general rule is a third less. If you can get away with a half and you're happy with it, and it's not dry and crumbly, and great, even better. Yeah.
Especially in pies.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't like sugar, that helps too. So
Yeah, sometimes, like a blueberry pie, they make them so sweet.
too sweet. There are a lot of things that are too sweet now. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. And I think as we get older, I think your taste buds change a little bit too. And I think I used to love Mountain Dew. Remember, that green, right? Yeah, I'd make that face now. Like I couldn't even think of it now. But I used to, when I was a teenager and in my 20s, I probably drank 2 or 3 bottles of those a day, So, but your taste change. I used to take sugar in my coffee, but now I'm sweet enough.
Yeah, sure.
All right, any other questions?
Do you know,
Yeah.
about Splendor and Equal and...
Yeah, I avoid them all. Splenda, Equal. I don't like any of those things. I find that they have a horrible aftertaste, and I don't trust them. I just don't trust them. I'm of the age group, I remember saccharin.
Oh, yeah. yes.
right? When I was a kid, at saccharin, oh, it's the greatest thing ever. And then saccharin turned out to give you cancer, you know? So I avoid all of those things. That's why whole food, eat as much whole foods as you possibly can, right? I'd rather you use honey, sweeten everything with honey, right? It's a real whole food, not processed, you know? That's what I would rather, you know, that's what I try to do.
Well, I was surprised one day. My neighbor had her grandson, and she gives him pancakes for breakfast when she was babysitting him. And she ran out of syrup, and I had one of the little bottles of maple syrup and gave it to her. He wouldn't eat it. It wasn't sweet enough.
Oh, there you go. See that? It wasn't sweet enough.
The reason that is because the maple syrup they serve in the stores is corn syrup. It's not the real maple
This
syrup.
is a little real maple syrup.
Yes, that's the difference. It's not
Yeah, I don't
sweet
know. Yeah.
as corn syrup.
Right. He's used. Yeah. I think that's. Yeah. Yeah. The base.